Are we ready to start the meeting?
Just a moment
I
here.
just want to make sure it's going. Go ahead. We're live.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and call the Planning Commission meeting to order of February 18th, 2021. Since we have not yet done our election of officers for this year, I will be leading us off until we have completed our election, which is item 2 on the agenda today. And then we'll turn it over to our new chair. So starting off, I will just read some of our disclaimers here. So effective March 27, 2020, the Mendocino County Planning Commission meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made available to the commissioners, staff, and the general public as they are received and processed by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda at the Planning Commission agenda page. Requests for telecomment are required to be submitted prior to 7 a.m. the morning of the meeting. If you requested to speak under public expression, please call in now. And next, I'd like to turn to our clerk and let's conduct roll call, please.
Commissioner Wiedemann.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Commissioner Jacobson? Randy, for some reason, we're not able to hear you. I wonder if you have a second mute button on your telephone.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you now. Perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Pollan.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Purnell.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. So our next item on the agenda is election of officers, both chair and vice chair. So I will turn this over to the commissioners for a discussion, and then we'd be looking for a motion for chair and vice chair. Yep, please go ahead, Greg.
Commissioner Nelson, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Purnell for chairman and Commissioner Wiedemann for vice chair.
Okay. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Excellent. And clerk, could we conduct a roll call vote on that?
Sure. Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell.
Yes.
And Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. So with that, we have a new chair, Chair Purnell, and vice chair is Commissioner Wiedemann. So with that, Allison, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Julia. So we have new commissioners. So I wanted to ask staff and maybe county council if it would be appropriate to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves.
I don't see an issue with that. I think we could go ahead and hear from the two new commissioners.
Well, I guess I can start. I'm not sure who the other new one is since I'm new. Okay, hey, Paul. My name's Marie Jones, and I grew up in Mendocino County, graduated from Mendocino High School in the 80s, so quite a while ago. And then I took off like all people who grow up here and had a life outside of the area. I got a master's in urban planning from Cornell University, and I have an undergraduate degree in biology and environmental studies from UC Santa Cruz. I worked at various gigs over the years in San Francisco and Michigan and New York, did a lot of work in affordable housing, economic development, and then consulting. I had my own consulting business for 5 years, doing land use planning and economic development work with cities and counties all over the state of California and some in Oregon And one of my clients was the city of Fort Bragg when they first started doing the mill site reuse planning process in the early 2000s, 2003 and 4. I was part of that team. And then when Linda Roofing, then community development director, decided to apply for city manager, she sent me an email and I said, hey, what if oops, sorry. Ah, damn cell phones. Let me turn that off. I may be going on too long, but at any rate, long story short, I became the community development director for the city of Fort Bragg, where I served for 13 interesting years. I would say my proudest accomplishment was getting the $12 million coastal trail project funded, constructed, designed, and did the environmental review for that. It was a very complicated 3-part project that included intensive consultation with the tribes and many environmental and stormwater issues. I also did worked with a couple affordable housing developers to get some nice affordable housing brought to Fort Bragg, and did a lot of land use planning for the city, including doing 3 housing element updates, a general plan amendment, an LCP amendment, and various other projects like a climate action plan, etc. So I've been on my own consulting again for a year and a half and kind of loving it. And nice to be out of the firelight and venturing back in now as a planning commissioner. So Dan asked me to serve and I said, I had to think about it for a month. And then I said, okay, I'll try it. So that's me.
Excellent, thank you. And now can we hear from Clifford Pollen?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet those of you that I haven't met before. Yeah, my name is Clifford Pollen. As you can tell from my virtual background here, I live in Potter Valley. I've been in Mendocino County since 2004. I'm an attorney. I have my own solo practice, doing mostly transactional work and a lot of work with people that are buying land collectively all throughout the state of California. What else to say about me? I have served on a number of nonprofit boards throughout Mendocino County. I was on the Ukiah Natural Foods Co-op board for about 11 years. I served on the North Coast Opportunities board for a number of years. I was elected to the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District and served as the chair there for a couple of years. And about 6 years ago, my partner and I founded an environmental education nonprofit, the Oak Granary, focused on land conservation and stewardship of the oak woodlands and environmental education work, which we run primarily out of our place in Potter Valley. I have a 5-year-old son, and yeah, I was really delighted when Glenn asked if I would serve on this commission. It felt like a really great way to get back. I've been kind of out of the more public light for a while, and so it felt like a nice way to step back in that wasn't too overwhelming. And it feels like there's a lot of very important issues in front of the Planning Commission and the county over the next few years. And so I'm hopeful that I can offer some contribution to that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting underway here.
Well, I, for one, would like to welcome you both to the Planning Commission. You're going to have a great experience. I can guarantee it.
Right.
Great.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, both of you. So I see that I'm struggling with an unstable internet connection this morning. So my apologies if I freeze. I'm trying to move around and find the best spot. Moving on to item 2B, determination of legal notice. Do we have that?
A legal notice has been determined on this matter.
Fantastic. And moving on to the director's report.
Good morning, Chair Parnell. Nash Gonzalez, Interim Director. Just to let you know that I was reappointed as the Interim Director back at the first of the year when it was announced that Director Schultz was resigning and moving to Tennessee to be with his family. So as of January 19th, I've assumed the Interim Director's position here at the county. And so I've worked with a number of you over the years. And for those of you that don't know, I was previously the director some 12, 15 years ago, left, came back, 2016, I was appointed as the interim director and served until 2018 when Director Schultz took over the department. And now, as of January 19th, I'm interim director again. And with that, I'd want to let the commission know that I'm going through a reorganization of the department. And with that said, one of my first tasks or duties that I performed was I promoted Julia Acker to assistant director of the department. So that's part of the reorganization that I'm going through right now. I'm also sad to report that Jesse Davis has departed the department. He has taken a position with the city of Ukiah, and so he's a huge loss for the department. The other thing that I want to report is that the cannabis manager also in the same week resigned, and we are currently working on a recruitment. But I also want to advise the Planning Commission that at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, it was decided that the cannabis manager is going to report directly to the Board of Supervisors now. So instead of being in planning and building, what's going to happen now is the cannabis manager will be a direct report to the Board of Supervisors. But for the time being, the staff will live in planning and building and will report to Julia Acker. On a more happier note, Vandy has now been promoted to interim senior planner. And, I just, want to say congratulations to Vandy. He's been with us for quite a while. I want to say
About 5 years.
About 5 years, and has really come a long way. So I'm really happy to announce that he's our interim senior planner. And we are going through the process of the recruitment for a senior or seniors at this point in time. Next item is the Phase 3 cannabis ordinance will be coming forward to the Planning Commission. And again, I'm going to ask Julia to talk a little bit about the Phase 3, and then I'll come back to other items.
Yeah, just wanting to let you know, we'll be reaching out. We're debating and thinking it probably would be a good idea to schedule a special planning commission hearing to review the Phase 3 ordinance, as well as potentially changes to the facilities regulations. So we'll be reaching out to the commissioners to see what would be a good date for that. And then also to let you know that the board action required that the planning commission report back within 40 days. So, you'll kind of get one shot at this to give your report and recommendation. So we'll be sure to get you documentation as early as we can. So that way you have an opportunity to review it. But that's really, we'll be reaching out in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then also to make note, the Oak Woodland ordinance.
We have a bunch of raised hands.
Everybody's raising their hand.
Yeah.
Good, Marie.
Yeah, I would love, since this is Phase 3 and I wasn't involved with Phase 1 and 2, if staff wouldn't mind sending me the background documentation, so I'm not going into this too ignorant. I'd like to see what else has been decided in the past. Maybe staff reports and minutes from the meetings would be super helpful, because I know this is a very important thing for our county.
Yes, no problem. I can follow up with you and send those.
Thanks.
I'd like that too.
Okay, no problem.
Documentation.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes. Nash, and congratulations again, Nash, back in the saddle. And to Julia, but I wanted you to expand a little on the Board of Supervisors taking the cannabis manager directly. Can you, and what is the role in the planning department with that, setup, right? Planning department to the manager, manager to the Board of Supes?
It's sort of a dual reporting structure. So really what it is that the manager would be reporting directly to the Board of Supervisors, whereas the staff would be reporting to potentially myself in the short term here, but also to the cannabis manager. So it's it's a little different than what we've seen in other situations, but this is something that I think the board is really seeking to get updates at regular meetings on this and be a little bit more involved with the cannabis manager position, ensuring that the program's moving in the right trajectory.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Let's see. The Oak Woodland ordinance will be going to the Board of Supervisors on March 9th. And so I know that the Planning Commission had previously reviewed this ordinance and made comments and a recommendation to the board, so that'll be moving forward.
And just to clarify, that Oak Woodlands ordinance, it's going for discussion and potential direction from the Board of Supervisors, not for final action.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also another item is board action regarding the makeup of the Planning Commission. A second reading of the ordinance will occur on the 23rd of February. And basically that would not become effective until 30 days thereafter. And basically what the Board of Supervisors was doing here is to align the Planning Commission with the supervisorial district. So we're actually going from 7-member commission to a 5-member commission. So again, that is still needing to go back to the board for a second reading. I know there was some, back and forth, amongst the board members, but ultimately it was decided that they wanted to align with the soup districts. So it is a change. It is a departure from what we were all used to over the years. But this was an item that was brought to the board by the board. And then finally, I also want to welcome our 2 new commissioners to the Planning Commission. Okay. So Mr. Pollan and Marie, welcome to the commission. I look forward to working with you as well as other commissioners as we move forward. One other item to note is that while I was away from planning and building, I was serving as the county's fire recovery director and spent most of my time there working on resiliency planning. Part of what I was involved with was the update of the county's hazard mitigation plan, as well as the county's general plan safety element, which now requires that you have the hazard mitigation plan now melded into it or referenced. And so we're at that point now where the document is being packaged up and submitted to the CAL FIRE and the Board of Forestry for their 90-day review. I will be bringing the revised safety element before the Planning Commission. And then based upon your recommendations and your comments, it will then move on to the Board of Supervisors. And again, these are the things that I've been working on while I've been away from planning and building as in disaster recovery. The other thing that having been working on was securing grant funding for other types of projects that make us more resilient. And one of those was a grant from the state to update our zoning ordinance, as well as to implement the UVAP. And I know Commissioner Nelson, you participated several years ago with the adoption of the UVAP, and it called for the rezoning of several of the parcels. I want to say there's over 100 parcels that need to be rezoned as part of the land use actions. And so we're looking at this as two parts to the grant. One is the zoning code update. The other one is the update or implementation of the UVAP. And this is all really tied around housing. And some of these parcels in the UVAP need to be rezoned. And so to avoid what we did or what happened with the general plan some 12 years ago, we ended up rezoning a group of these parcels based on the general plan action. But what the board did is they put the rezonings back onto the property owners. And so most of the property owners have not gone forward with the rezoning of these properties. So in order to do economic development and get these parcels rezoned, we sought this grant to do the rezoning in-house and not wait for each individual property owner to come through. So again, that's part of our resilient strategy in disaster recovery, is we can get some of these parcels rezoned to accommodate housing and higher densities and be able to move forward and implement disaster recovery plans. So that'll be something that we'll be moving forward now, and we'll bring those rezones forward to the Planning Commission first for review and recommendation before they go on to the board. Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yeah, just a quick question. The zoning code update, is that going to be for the whole county or just the area you talked about?
Just for the inland, not the coast. So
Okay.
it'll only cover the inland. And what we've done over the years is we've
The whole
compiled.
general plan? The general plan area? Okay.
Yes, the general plan, not the coastal area. And so what we've done over the years is we've basically have compiled needed corrections to the zoning code. And we're at that point that we actually need to update. And so before I departed for Santa Clara County, I had actually sought a grant and received a grant to update the zoning code. Unfortunately, after it wasn't completed, and it just didn't happen. So lucky enough, 4 months ago that an opportunity came along and we got the grant to do this. And so we're going to go back and actually follow through with the update of the zoning code. So the zoning code update is inland. It is to implement the general plan that was adopted in 2009. And
Awesome.
so,
Great job.
and so with that, that concludes the director's report, and I'm available for any questions that the commission may have.
Nash, what's the timeline for the zoning ordinance update, and will that be a consultant task?
I think it's going to be, through the chair, this is going to be probably a hybrid with myself being involved with the project. Again, I was familiar with the general plan update and familiar with a lot of the issues in the zoning code that need to be updated. So I think we may use some consultant work on this, but I think the majority of it we're going to try to do in-house and move that forward. The timeline is under the grant, we've got 18 months to perform. But the first thing we're going to do is address the low-hanging fruit, which is the rezoning of the parcels in the UVAP. And I'm actually resurrecting a lot of my notes from when I started the zoning code update back in 2011.
It's great you're back and you're taking this on because it's definitely needed, and really appreciate your energy and excitement to get it done.
Thank you.
It's overdue. This is great news. Any other questions for Director Gonzalez?
Just a quick one on the cannabis ordinance. What is the end of that 40-day window?
Boy, so it was 40 days from January 25th. I would need to, I can look through the calendar here, but I got to count it out because the months aren't perfect. But that, I think we're running right into March in that. So you should be expecting that the hearing would be held in March at the latest.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing that I'll add before I step out is that as we move forward with some of these larger projects, I'll be working with Julia to possibly add another planning commission hearing here and there to address these ordinances, to address the UVAP, to address the zoning code. But again, more to come.
Thank you for that director's report. Was there anything else, Nash?
No, Chair, but like I said, I'm available to answer any questions.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, just to note that normally we have a pretty short director's report. I think if we wanted to open this to public comment on this item and see if any of the attendees want to make public comment, that would be appropriate.
Okay. Well, let's open public comment on the director's report. Do we have anybody in queue to comment?
There were no members of the public that directly asked to speak on this, but I know we do have several folks listening on the line. So if any individuals that are on the line wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. That is a function available at the bottom of the screen. You should be able to find a raise hand button. And if you wish to speak, please do so. And we'll just wait a minute here to give you a chance to find that.
And if you're on the phone, star
Six, yes, and I do see we have a hand raised here from Miss Anna Marie Weibel. So we're going to go ahead and bring her in, and I will start the timer here once Anna Marie begins speaking. And Anna Marie, you'll have 3 minutes once you start talking. And you are on mute at the moment, so please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I want to welcome Mr. Gonzalez and the new commissioners. And it's interesting to hear from Mr. Gonzalez about the new things that are happening also with the supervisors in terms of the planning commission and maybe down the road even alternates that could vote if the individual people couldn't attend. So that's exciting. And I want to just say a few things that tie in with the last meeting where the new people did not attend, where the 2 representatives for the 1st and 2nd district, it was their last meeting after serving for 12 years. And they felt strongly that the guidelines, Mendocino County guidelines, should be rewritten, updated, and also that one of the commissioners asked, Mr. Jacobson, I believe, he was very interested in a workshop about 5G, and it would be good to have different sides, you know, leading this workshop. And the issue came up about maps that Ms. Wiedemann brought up, and I contacted Russell Ford. I don't know if he gave you materials, but it is mentioned in the guidelines that this should be with every application. Also, I hope that we'll soon have a representation for the 2nd district and then update the webpage. So that would help. And I hope there won't be any conflict of interest with the upcoming topic. So if anybody needs to help, I hope that can happen before we get to a vote. I just had one more question. I sent an email for this upcoming agenda item, and I don't know if anybody received it.
And Anna Marie, we did receive it, and that was shared with all the commissioners this morning, and we'll get to that underneath the public hearing item for that case.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Let me see if there was any other members of the public wishing to speak on this, and I do not see any other hands raised. So I believe with that, Chair Purnell, we can go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda.
Great. So we've concluded matters from the public. Any public comment?
Chair Purnell, this is Deputy County Council Matthew Kudrowski. That was just for the director's report. We haven't technically.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that clarification. We'll go ahead and move on to item 4, matters from the public. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Julia, do you know, can you see if we have anybody in queue for matters from the public?
We did not have any requests to speak underneath this, the matters from the public, but we do have requests under the public hearing item.
Thank you. Moving on then to item number 5, consent calendar, there is none. And so moving on to item number 6 on the regular calendar, 6A. This is case number UM 2020-0004. I do need to note that due to previous advocacy work on previous incarnations of this project, I need to recuse myself from the issue and at this point turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Wiedemann. And I see Commissioner Nelson with his hand up as well.
I as well need to recuse myself because I have a conflict of interest.
Okay, so I believe at this point, myself and Commissioner Nelson will exit for this item and then reunite with you all afterwards.
So I will not be coming back to the meeting as there's no other items.
Okay, we do have approval of minutes at the end of the agenda, but entirely your choice.
You're blocked, Greg. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Did you hear my first comment that I will not be attending the rest of the meeting? Thank you.
Yes, we got that. Thank you.
So, and what we will do here, Commissioner Purnell, is we will go ahead and move you. We have a function that says to put on hold. It's at the very bottom there, Jim.
Okay.
And we'll be able to move you over and bring you back. So no problem. So Vice Chair Wiedemann, please go ahead and take us over.
Bye now.
So, can on case number UM 2020-0004, can we have request to modify the existing use permit UM 3-2009/2014 permitting AT&T Mobility to install new equipment in an existing compound area and increase the height of the existing tower by 20 feet. The request also includes installation of a 30 kilowatt Generac diesel generator with a 190-gallon associated fuel tank, storage tank, as well as various equipment and antenna additions to the tower itself. Located 9 miles northeast of Laytonville, lying on the north side of Spywalk Road, 4.4 miles northeast of its intersection with Highway 101, located at 3750 Spyrock Road, Laytonville, APN 056-310-18. Previous subsequent mitigating negative deck is to be adopted by the mitigated negative deck. Can we have staff planner's report?
Go ahead.
Yes, this is Keith Gronendijk, planner in Mendocino County. The general plan designation of the site is remote residential, while the zoning is upland residential, and they both have 20-acre minimum parcel sizes. The subject site is bordered on all sides by 20-acre properties, and Spyrock Elementary School is located approximately 1,600 feet southwest of the project site. An existing single-family residence is located approximately 150 feet to the north, and a large stand of trees stands between the house and the tower site. Crown Castle maintains a 20-foot access and utility easement from Spyrock Road to the communications facility. The existing cell tower site sits within a 126-foot by 116-foot separate lot with a separate parcel number than the parcel that surrounds it. This parcel was created back in 1995 by a grant deed. There's some verbiage about it didn't require a land division process in order to acquire the subject property back at in that time. That deed's been transferred to other cell tower companies through the years. The project was found to be consistent with the general plan and the zoning ordinance of Mendocino County. Subsequent mitigated negative declaration to the previously approved mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project in accordance with the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. Staff determined that the additional antennas, microwave dish, and increase in height will not substantially degrade the visual setting of the site or its surroundings, provided the project incorporates conditions of approval included with this entitlement application. All required findings for use permit approval, use permit modification approval have been made, and staff recommends approval of this use permit modification application.
And if I may, I would just like to add, we do have a revised resolution, and Jim, if I could see the mouse from you real quick. And I'm unsure if you want to review that revised resolution now, or if you'd like to review it after you've had your discussion and heard from the public, but it doesn't change any of the conditions of approval. It really changes some of the recitals that we see within the resolution and reflects that the commission is seeking today, or that staff prepared, a subsequent mitigated negative declaration, which is what we are requesting that the commission adopt. And the resolution that was provided within your packet talked about a potential addendum, which wasn't the correct language. It really is that we're seeking to have a subsequent mitigated negative declaration. So Vice Chair Wiedemann, would you like to review that now or later in the meeting?
If it hasn't changed and you're just updating it for this meeting with dates, I'm fine to keep going.
Okay. Well, we will make sure that we show this at the end before any motions are entertained on this. That way you know what the resolution will look like that you are making a motion upon. So thank you.
To staff, can you give some background on this project? We have it in our staff report, but can you give the background more on, because this particular cell tower has been to the commission several times in the past. And it was also brought up when it had an extension in the past for the 20-foot extension to the existing cell tower. Can you give some background on that? What happened at those meetings?
Sure. The original tower was approved, I think it was 95. And then through the years, the height has been slowly increased. Let's see, this application that we're currently looking at was pretty much the same application that was approved back in 2014. That was to raise the tower height 20 feet from a 50-foot height to 70 feet, which is the same as what they're asking for now. And to add a 50 kilowatt electricity generator. But that application, even though it was approved, they never acted upon. So that application died or became null and void. So this is just the same application. So that's kind of some of the history.
Marie?
Yeah, I have some clarifying questions to ask of staff, if you wouldn't mind. One of my questions is, in this zoning district, what would be the maximum height allowable with use permits in the future?
It's typically, so for utility installations, there's exceptions to height within our code, but typically the zoning district maxes out at 50 feet.
Okay, and so they're asking for an exception on a use permit to get another 20. Can they go higher than that is my question in the future?
Yes, they would be able to if they requested and we were able to make the appropriate findings.
Okay. I have another question about the generator. I noticed that in the past applications, they had included a natural gas, and in this one, they're including a gas generator. I couldn't tell from the plans whether they had sufficient spill containment for that, given the size of this property and how close it is to the neighbor's parcel. I want to make sure that we add a special condition to that if this project ends up going forward. I also noticed on special condition 13 that you have 50 dBA at the nearest offsite residence. I think it's cleaner to have that read at the property border, because then you're not going on to the neighbor's residence to find out what the dBA is. And they should have the quiet enjoyment of their entire property, not just inside their house or at their house. I have some other comments, but I wanted to hold them until after we hear from the public.
Okay.
Sure. And if I may, just to speak to the spill prevention plan and such, we have this standardized condition that requires compliance with all other, all other agencies with jurisdiction over the project, which includes our environmental health division. So as part of the building permit review that would accompany this, environmental health would review, and if required, a hazardous materials management plan would be required as part of that component, but it depends upon the amount of storage of fuel on the site, from what I understand. And if you exceed 55 gallons, I understand, is the threshold as to when you require that hazard management materials management plan.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Right. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Steph, any other questions? Pauline, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I noticed that in condition 7, there is the requirement of a bond to be put in place in case there's any abandonment of the infrastructure. And I was curious, I don't know if County Council knows this or if staff knows this, of what that bond amount is and if it's going to be increased at all for the expansion of this project.
I would have to look back through the past entitlements to see what the bond amount was. It's usually based upon an engineer's estimate as to the cost. And we do not, our code does not require that those are updated periodically. So at this time, typically the cost of the actual tower removal doesn't change substantially by adding the small height increase on it, because you're still having to remove the entirety of the infrastructure. But we have not typically required an updated bond necessarily for minor modifications to towers. But of course, the commission and may decide if there's a nexus in proportionality to require that.
It seems that there's the height of the tower, but then there's also the additional infrastructure that's being installed in terms of a generator and fuel on site. And just to Commissioner Jones's concern about spilling, I mean, if there was any sort of environmental impact from having fuel on site that could increase liability for removal, it would seem that there would be a nexus there with having the bond increase. And then again, I want to beg forgiveness, being a new commissioner and not knowing a lot of things. There's probably a lot of things that everyone else already knows, but I'm not aware of. But one of the questions that I had, and this goes to a comment that came from the public earlier around a general wireless guidelines for the whole county. I'm curious how this fits into the larger picture of wireless coverage, and particularly as it relates to coverage along the 101 corridor. I noticed in some of the maps about increased coverage from this particular tower. It doesn't seem to significantly improve coverage along the 101 corridor through there, which seems to be, in terms of public safety, the largest potential impact. And I'm curious how this aligns with the larger vision for broader coverage, and especially as it relates to public safety.
Sure. So typically all towers are required to provide space for EMS service providers. I would need to do a deep dive of our files, because while we do get coverage maps, often we do not have necessarily a master document that shows all those overlays of coverage maps. So I have to pull each individual file to see how the overlays would relate to towers that are in those areas to see the exact coverage. But I'm fairly certain that the applicant or the agent will also be able to speak to some of the increased coverage that's coming as a result of this project, as well as how many anticipated users might be benefited from this particular project.
Okay, I raised that issue in relationship to what it seems like a fairly substantial amount of public comment, at least in written responses that we've seen, that seem to be in opposition to this plan. And there were a number of comments indicating that there were other sites that are not too far. And I know that it's not our job to mandate an applicant to, change their site location, but I'm just curious again, as we're approving these plans and what seems to be, at least from a new person and from an outsider perspective, in sort of a piecemeal ad hoc way, it would be curious to understand if and where it is possible to guide applicants to locations that provide more comprehensive coverage. And then my other question is, I noticed that there was a note in there that this project does not need to meet any additional CAL FIRE regulations. But I'm curious if there have been any conditions ever put on a tower like this, or if there have been consultations with applicants around the concept of hardening these facilities in light of wildfires, so that they would be more resilient in that instance. Again, if we're thinking about these as part of our critical infrastructure during emergency situations, it would seem having them be more resilient to wildfire impacts would be a worthwhile consideration to bring to them as well.
What I can say from a staff perspective is I do know that the generators are one tool that folks are really seeking to be able to ensure that towers stay online in the event that, say, there's a fire that takes out the power infrastructure. That's one methodology. I cannot speak to whether or not fire agencies have been pushing towards more resiliency. I have not been privy to any conversations like that, but it might be something that, again, the agent or applicant could be able to speak to a little bit better, and how they may be addressing fire impact concerns.
Yeah, I would appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Randy? I guess he's okay. So then can we hear from the applicant?
Yes, absolutely. So we will go ahead and bring them over here. And Jim, just remind me.
Jason Osborne.
Jason, okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over Jason Osborne here. Jason, you are now in the meeting. Go ahead and unmute yourself when you are ready and provide your comment.
Good morning, staff and commissioners. My name is Jason Osborne, representing Crown Castle and the project that Keith so eloquently put forward this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions. It looks like there were a couple questions I can answer. One is the resiliency of our cell sites. One of the things we do is we do bring in the generator. Obviously, we do have a fire retardant fiber bond shelter that's there, but beyond that, there's really nothing you can do to prevent a wildfire from burning through the cell site. I mean, you've got coax cables and wires and those sort of things. I mean, they're fairly resilient, but they're obviously not fireproof, and the technology is not quite there for that, Commissioner. And the purpose of this site is to broaden the coverage in the area. Our closest AT&T site for this area is 9.2 miles away. So we do have some basic outdoor coverage, but we're trying to provide additional coverage for our subscribers in the area. And so that this does kind of fill one of our gaps in the area. It's not designed, obviously, to cover 101 just because it's not in that plan yet. But this is just to cover the area that we're seeking here. And I don't remember if there was any other question. Let's see. I've got the original application was presented in 2014 and we lost funding. So we were unable to extend the tower at that time after the original approval. And the diesel generator does have a 190-gallon insulated tank that's on it that is protected. Obviously, there's spill containment that's already in the staff recommended that we have spill containment on site already. So hope that helps answer that as well. And I'm available to answer any other questions you may have.
Commissioners, does anybody have a question for Jason Osborne?
I guess I have a question, Jason. In looking at the site, admittedly, I didn't drive out there. I did use Google Earth and drive around in the virtual car. I did notice that on the southeast side of the parcel, would you be willing to entertain planting additional trees there? Because that's really the location from which the tower is most visible. The existing tower is most visible, and any future tower would be more visible. Looks like you have plenty of property there where you could plant additional trees.
If it's on our property, I think we'd be amenable to something of that nature. I think the only fear is, the tower itself would be 70 feet. So planting a 70-foot tree would block the signal. And we do have a microwave that's on top. So I'd want to try to make sure we didn't plant a tree that would actually block the signal. You do have 2 microwaves that are on that tower that do need line of sight because there's no fiber on site. So we're transmitting to another location. That would be the only fear. But I think we'd be amenable to planning some landscaping to definitely, shield some of the equipment, if that makes sense. We unfortunately can't block the actual signal of the microwaves. And there are 2 microwaves. There's one at 20 feet, and there's another one, the one we're proposing at 65 feet.
Pretty good. Any other questions from commissioners?
Just to follow up on that question, if that was a condition that, I guess this is sort of for staff, if that condition of planting additional shading or screening vegetation was made as a part of this, would there also be a maintenance aspect to that? Because to just put some trees in the ground without having a plan for watering them and maintaining them basically just sounds like adding to additional fire hazard.
Yes, typically we usually have standards about ensuring that there's basically it's a certain period of time to ensure that those plantings are actually established and then that they're maintained. And that would be, part of the condition of approval. And if the commission seeks to add that, staff would probably ask for a short break so that way we could work on crafting language for you to review before any action would be taken.
Okay. I had a question for you, Jason. In your staff report on page 2, it talks about the additional microwave and antenna height. How it's phrased is with both dishes that you just referred to would add basically an increased cell coverage. Maybe it's also a possibility. So that's kind of weak language, also a possibility. So the question I really have is, and your maps are a little hard to see in the sense of more cell coverage. So if we go up, up to basically it's almost 70 feet. And the concern for me is I'm 1,600 feet away from a school. And I have no idea really how much more cell coverage you are producing here. Can you expand on that? How much more cell coverage would we get for this increase in height? Jason?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute my thing here. Well, 2 points. Number one, the microwave dish that would be going up on top, Commissioner, that's not going to provide any other cell coverage. Just so you know, that's to transmit the fiber signal. So we actually have telco there. The maps that we did provide, I'm not sure if Keith can bring them up, but we do have outdoor coverage in the area. And by bringing in the additional antennas, this will provide us with additional indoor coverage so people don't have to walk outside of their house. It's tough to translate into coverages of that nature just because of the maps. And I don't know if Keith has it, but I can pull up our prop map and you guys probably got a black and white version of it. But it basically, what it does is it covers the same area. So you're not actually increasing the coverage. What you're doing is you're increasing the actual amount of subscribers that can use the network in the area, if that makes sense. And then along with that, you mentioned the school that's 1,600 feet away. We did provide an EMF study that shows that our RF is safe, that we've fallen below the safety standards, if that makes sense.
Can you clarify what your RF is relative to the safety standards?
Yes, let me pull that up. Give me 1 second. Naturally, I can't find it for a second. Hold on 1 sec. Let's see here. All right. Let's see.
I didn't see the RF study in the staff report. That's why I asked.
Okay,
Maybe
no
it's in the
problem.
M&D.
We are at 5% of the general population limit, so 95% below the FCC allowable limitation. And that's on the cover page of the Waterford report that we submitted from April 2nd of 2020.
Thank you.
So actually, the coverage is not reaching out any more than what you already have. It's just a stronger signal so people can actually have capability within
Correct.
those.
I think that's a better way to state it. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jason. Any more questions before I go to the public? All right, we'll open up public.
Commissioner Wiedemann, Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, if I can make two requests before we go to public comment.
Thank you.
I would like staff to be able to go through the resolution as revised so the public has a chance to see that before making comment. And if the commissioners, any commissioners do have more comments or questions regarding this project, I'd encourage those to also happen before public comment so the public can hear those thoughts before their turn to speak as well.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, well, let me go ahead and share my screen here. So hold on one second. Let me scroll back up to the beginning here. Okay, let me try to make this a little larger so it's not so small on everyone's screen. Okay, so starting off here, at least in the top header here, we just need to note that this is also adopting a subsequent mitigated negative declaration as opposed to just granting the use permit modification. Here in the second whereas clause, we just updated some dates within here to reflect the correct dates of when that circulation occurred. Then within the third whereas clause, we've revised to remove the reference to an addendum as was stated during the staff presentation. This is actually a subsequent mitigated negative declaration. So the section referenced here is the section of the CEQA guidelines that refers to subsequent mitigated negative declarations. And then the additional language is down here that states that a subsequent was prepared on the basis of substantial evidence in light of the whole record that certain changes or new information has been presented that requires revisions to the previously adopted document. Then you see some corrections coming down here referencing the subsequent mitigated negative declaration as opposed to the addendum and removing reference to it being an attachment as an exhibit to the report. Then we have coming down here into the next whereas clause, again, referencing the subsequent mitigated negative declaration and the subsequent mitigated negative declaration again down here in the last sentence. Going on to the next page, there's no changes made to the first finding. And in the second finding, we just had one error here. It's sites versus sites. So it's changing the S to a C just to make sure that's clear. We missed that because it's sites is a real word. So that's a minor correction there. Otherwise, no other findings until we get to finding number 3 here are modified. This finding speaks to now that a subsequent mitigated negative declaration to the previously adopted mitigated negative declaration has been prepared. And then notes again here that certain potentially significant impacts were identified as a result of the proposed modification. However, these impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels with the incorporation of several mitigation measures. As a result, a subsequent mitigated negative declaration has been prepared. Now, if the commission chooses to approve and adopt the project, there is this first be it further resolved clause, and this now speaks to if the planning commission so chooses to approve and adopt the subsequent mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation measures in the form attached to the agenda packet. The planning commission certifies that the subsequent mitigated negative declaration has been completed, reviewed, and considered together with the comments received during the public review process in compliance with CEQA and state and county CEQA guidelines, and finds that the subsequent mitigated negative declaration reflects the independent judgment and analysis of the planning commission. That concludes the changes on the preambles of the resolution. And then what I have been working on is just listening to the comments received from commissioners, is that after you receive public comment and are in deliberation, we'll want to talk about what conditions of approval you may wish to add to the project, and then we will modify and share the screen again with that information. And that concludes the changes. So, oh, excuse me, and one other cleanup item here, you'll just see that Exhibit B would be deleted as well off of this document. And that's here where it has the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. My apologies.
Deputy
And
County Counsel, sorry, Julie, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I'm all completed. Thank you.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, just to clarify one more point. This item was noticed appropriately as a subsequent mitigated neg deck, and it was posted for review. It's the resolution that needed cleanup changes to remove the reference to an addendum.
Okay. Anything else, Matthew?
That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that, now can we open public input?
Yes, so I will be pulling over. We have a couple members of the public who have requested to speak under the public comment section for this item. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them over. The first that we have is Anna Marie Weibel. And Anna Marie, I've just brought you over into the meeting, and I will be running the timer here for 3 minutes, and I will announce when there's 30 seconds remaining. So Anna Marie, when you are ready, please unmute yourself and go ahead and begin with your comments.
I first want to say that having 3 commissioners vote doesn't seem right, because then you all have to vote the same way. And also there's a conflict of interest because Mr. Gronendijk is a good school friend of Jason, and I studied all the public information that we could get a hold of, which is humongous documents, and it seems like the new commissioners should be up to date with everything that transpired before, because now we are with COVID, nobody's coming to speak to you, and you'll get what you wanted to get since 1999. The schools were there to speak to you and say it's not acceptable, you didn't listen, and now you kept wanting to make that tower bigger, bigger, bigger. It's not okay. We know we can put it another 20 feet. It's next to the school. Marcia Miller has been in touch with you. You had the information wrong. It's still wrong in your paper that you're basing the story on about the area. The Spy Rock Elementary School was not notified, and the setbacks have never been legal. The property should not be should be 20 acres and not a third of it. And the 2 Native American tribes were not contacting. The telecom company never looked for another site since 1999. There's no balloon test. And it is so substantial, the change, but they're basically just bringing up old documents from 2014. When you look back, these permits were reinstated and expired and lost funding. It's a huge mess. And Mr. Gronendijk didn't give us the history. We need the complete history, which Julia Acker did in 2016. And all these documents that we received were completely out of order, and it didn't show these companies are not good stewards. The neighbors have too much noise. They're dead trees. They are watering these plants themselves. Nobody's checking up on things. Things weren't done.
Seconds remaining.
some meetings nobody attended, other meetings you got hundreds and hundreds of complaints from school kids and the whole community. The community doesn't want it, and if it's not helping 101, this site should just be left alone and everything removed. In terms of AT&T says they have a gap, but I said in my paper there is.
And Vice Chair Wiedemann, that was time. If you would like to continue hearing, please let me know.
Yes, any other public speaker?
Yes, we have other speakers, so let me go ahead and bring them over. The next person up for speaking here is Marcia Miller. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Marcia over. And Marcia, when you are ready, it appears you're on a phone. It is *6 to unmute yourself. You will have 3 minutes, and I'll announce when you have 30 seconds remaining. And when you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and begin speaking. And again, that's *6 to unmute.
My name is Marcia Miller, and I'm the adjacent property owner to the cell phone tower. And I'm totally opposed to the height increase. It affects our school. At a prior hearing, the planning commissioners told us that the height increase that they approved that time would be the last one because of impacts to Spy Rock School. They said the height would never be raised again. And Tim Henry, he's now the principal of Laytonville High School. At that time, he was the teacher at Spy Rock School. He remembers this conversation too. Please keep the word of the Planning Commission to deny this and any other height increase. By the way, when I was at that last hearing, I heard one of the cell phone tower representatives laugh. This is as we're leaving, and tell the person he was with, I think they would have voted for it even if I never went in there. And I immediately wrote this quote down on the front of my folder so I would have it word for word. In the minutes for the hearing in 2014, conditions of approval, aesthetics, number 7, it says, branches of the entire monopine shall extend beyond the antennas and fully conceal the supporting structure and antennas. The branches must be constructed to a density of 3.5 branches for each 1 vertical foot of pole. Please see the photos. This was never done. Allison Purnell is the commissioner for my area. She's been forced to recuse herself from this item because in the past, she opposed the height increases for this tower. And she knows Spy Rock School, and she knows this tower, and there are good reasons why she is opposed. By the way, watering of the trees, I'm the only person who has ever watered the trees. I planted them surrounding the site, and I watered them. I would love to see more trees planted. And to the southeast of the site, the signal would be going into a ridge, so it's not like blocking it, by the way, would be any problem. I would love to see more trees, and I would love to see them water these trees. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Now we're going to go ahead. We have one more caller, and that is, let me see if I can find him. There he is, Tim Henry. I'm going to bring over Mr. Henry here. Mr. Henry, when you are ready, please unmute yourself. And as I said before, you will have 3 minutes, and I'll announce when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. And greetings to the Mendocino County Planning Commission. Thank you for hearing the public concerns today. I am the former teacher at Spy Rock Elementary School from 2003 to 2012. I am very familiar with this site and with this project. Over 10 years ago, I came before the commission to oppose the extension of the tower. And this was to keep the students out of the shadow of this cell tower. Although it's 1,600 feet away, it's perched up on a knoll, right behind a knoll, and any extension would put it above the knoll, which currently keeps it from being in the view shed of the school and pointing right at it. and being in the shadow. So, with that said, at that point, the commission did oppose the full extension for a good reason, that this will constitute a nuisance and be detrimental to the health, safety, peace, morals, and comfort of the community. This extension would impact the viewshed. It will cast a shadow over the school and change the character and the flavor of the community. This is not a remote property. This is upland residential, and there are many people who live in the area and around the cell phone tower. This would have an impact on everybody. This monopine does not hide the ugly. It's very obvious. It is not like the other trees that are there. Also, on another note, this technology, as Jason was saying earlier, is not going to benefit new people in new areas who live remotely. As we have been reading in the news, and I myself have signed up for Starlink and other means of receiving telecommunications. This technology is going to be antiquated before it is even implemented. Let's see here.
Is there any more public online, Julia?
Am I out of time?
No, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, yes, great. So I just hope that the commission is able to recognize the precedents from previous commission rulings. It is a strong indicator that this residential area is inappropriate for even a larger tower. Thank you very much. This has been reviewed. The cost benefit is not there. I think that Jason's argument is pretty weak, very weak in terms of the benefit. I know that the RF studies have indicated that this is okay, but I think that that's probably the case in most of these things. Thank you very much, Commission. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Okay, and that concludes our request for public comment on this item.
All right, that public comment is closed. Do the commissioners, let's open it up among ourselves to talk for a discussion. Any other information or feedback from other commissioners?
Well, I guess I have a challenge with this because only 2 people came to speak out against it, and they talked about other meetings in the past where there was a lot of opposition that we're not seeing today, which may be a function of our COVID reality. I'm not sure. My own take on the project is it does seem that this site is problematic in its location. Certainly, being so close and so small next to the adjoining property owner, that if the commission decides to approve it, I would strongly recommend 2 or 3 conditions. One of my conditions that I would recommend is that no additional cell towers be permitted on the property, and that no additional height increases be allowed on this particular cell tower. So I think those 2 for me would be minimal to consider an approval. I'm also open to alternative arguments from other commissioners, depending on what your thoughts are. And then I also had some ideas that we can get into in more detail about other special conditions if the commission decides to go that route. So that's just my feedback.
Commissioner Pollan?
Just a few questions for staff that came up for me in hearing some of that public comment. The first was around consultation with Native American tribes. Are we under any obligation to consult with tribes on these types of projects? And if so, did we do that?
Yes, we are under obligation to consult. It's AB 52 is the regulation that requires that we consult with tribes that have requested that type of comment. And in reviewing, it's on page 5 of your staff report packet. There is the referral agencies that this was sent to, and it was sent to the 3 tribes who had requested to receive notice under AB 52. And let's see here, we received a no comment response from Redwood Valley Rancheria and no response from either Cloverdale Rancheria or Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo Indians.
And the other tribes that were listed in Ms. Weibel's correspondence that we received this morning did not request to be consulted on these types of issues.
That's correct.
And then the other question that I had was, a comment was made that there had been an assurance made by the Planning Commission at some point that there would not be any extensions of height on this tower. And I'm curious, again, I'm only privy to what we got in our packet, and I haven't seen the entire record, and I'm curious if that appears in the public record at any other point. Obviously, it wasn't put in as a condition somewhere, but I'm curious. Again, I don't want to. If there was an assurance made at some point as sort of an implied condition, I would want to make sure we were aware of that.
Sure, we're just flipping through, and looking at, there is the history provided on pages 3 and 4 of your staff report of all the permitting history. What's interesting, and I would have to pull all of the various minutes to really understand, but I believe, as was stated by Mr. Gronendijk during his presentation, this request, this identical request, was approved by the Planning Commission in 2014. So my assumption would be that it was perhaps at that meeting in 2014 that they may have made a commitment. But as was stated during the presentation, that improvement was never built out, the permit was never vested, and therefore that expired. If you would like, I can pull up the minutes from that meeting and take a look at them, but I don't have it in front of me right at the moment.
Okay. Commissioner Pauling, any more? Commissioner.
No, I don't have any more. I guess I'm just, again, being a new commissioner, I'm not sure exactly how the process and protocol works on all of this. I would feel more comfortable being able to understand what the full record said on this, but I don't want to be a stick in the mud if that's not the way things are done. And so I kind of have to defer to staff and the other planning commissioners who've been on longer than one meeting to say how we proceed in this type of a situation.
All right. And we can come back. Everybody will still we'll keep going around until we're done with comments from our board, the commission. So Randy Jacobson, you're on the phone. Do you have any comments, questions?
We can't hear you, Randy, if you're speaking. You're still muted. Now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. With the idea that this was actually approved in 2014, and from what I understand, with the caveat that it would not be extended beyond this 70-foot request, I don't see this as being a significant issue. I see this as something that I could approve.
All right. Anything else, Randy? That's it for you. All right. I have a couple comments, and I'm having a problem. I have approved and denied cell towers on either side of the fence for various reasons. I think for me, the biggest issue is, once again, I'm going to say there's not a whole lot of bang for the buck here, in the sense of you're putting a community. If I didn't have a school 1,600 feet, that's less than 2 football fields away. That's a problem.
No.
For me. Wait,
Randy, you need to put yourself on mute now.
Oh, okay.
Wait, Randy. Okay. So I guess for me, because it's not increasing a lot of user access, and they let it expire at one point, and most of the feedback I've read from people in that area or talk is they're opposed to it. So I am having a problem myself to look positively on this. And so those are my concerns with it. I don't feel like, and getting back to Commissioner Pollan, yes, it is difficult when you're coming in and you don't have the whole background history. And somehow, sometimes our staff reports, I wish we had, we're in a transition here with the new commission, but I wish we would have more access because then in the past, we were able to get to the planning department and go through these files. So I see we're at odds here a little bit. So with that, I pass it back for any more comments, and then I'll entertain a motion.
Well, it's funny to like join the commission on a controversial project, first one out the gate, but that's sort of the nature of cell towers, I think. I am a little bit leaning in the same direction as you, Diana, mostly just because of the size of the parcel and the nearness to the neighbors and the school, and the unclarity about actually improved service. I think people have a lot of concerns about cell towers, and the RF that they have is well below federal guidelines. But people's concerns are still a place of fear for them, whether or not they achieve those guidelines or not. And I think a use permit is fundamentally about whether a facility is compatible with the adjoining users. And it's a discretionary permit, so it's not a done deal. It's up to the Planning Commission to decide whether or not this cell tower is compatible with the adjoining properties or not. It certainly appears to be incompatible with the immediately adjoining property. The record isn't as clear to me because we didn't get as much feedback, I guess, as last meetings. So I would lean towards denial. If there's a quorum that want to do approval, then I would condition that approval on not allowing any future expansion of the facility. So that's kind of where I'm coming down. It's a little bit weird to be here on the first meeting out of the gate, but there you go. Clifford, I guess it's your turn to weigh in.
Yeah, again, I think I feel similarly. I recognize that it's not our job to just deny a project on sort of a gut level feeling, and I'm trying to look at as much of the record and the data is available to us, and that's where I'm feeling a little bit hamstrung. I guess that one of my questions about its impact on expanded coverage was, again, this sort of cost benefit analysis in terms of it does seem that, at least from the record that we've seen, and there is a lot of sort of hearsay evidence in here of people referring to other, at least from what I've seen, referring to other meetings and other comments from additional neighbors that isn't a part of the record in front of us right now, that there is sort of an overwhelming community opposition to this project. And as Commissioner Jones said, I think that it is important for us to weigh the impact on adjoining parcels. And the bang for the buck issue does also tend to have me leaning against denial as well. But again, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to make that as a really hard and fast decision based on what information is in front of us right now. Again, I don't know about the process and whether it's appropriate to defer this for an additional meeting so that commissioners have a chance to review more of the record that exists out there in advance of today's packet. And if that is a possibility, I would feel more comfortable with that rather than having to make a decision today. But if we have to today, then I can cast a vote. I just haven't. It's hard for me to say definitively which way I want to go, but I am leaning against denial currently.
So you're leaning against denial or leaning for denial?
Sorry, I'm leaning towards denial. I'm leaning
Okay.
towards denial of the application.
Right. So I feel like I'd like to see if there's a motion.
To continue?
Pardon me, Vice Chair Wiedemann. We've got 2 hand raises from the applicants. I'm unsure if you would like to hear from them. I believe the first with the hand raise was Mr. Osborne. I don't know if you'd like to hear from them.
I think we've already heard. Do we need to hear from them again?
It is your choice.
I'm just trying to make a motion for a continuation. That's all I'm trying to do. And then we can provide more research to you showing the coverage benefit.
Jason, that's not really your job. We make the motion to continue or not, but we appreciate that's what you'd like.
Right. So I am going to go forward and request a motion, whether it's for continuation or whether it's for a vote on whether we approve it or deny it.
I think we would have to continue at any rate, because I think that the staff would need to write a resolution that it has facts associated with it for denial of the permit. I don't believe we have such a resolution in front of us. So we would have to continue it. We would basically have to direct staff to develop findings for denial if that's the route we're going.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Godrowski agreed. Right now, if there's consideration that this would be needing for denial, we need written findings that would support that. We may have to develop those further with the commission. If the applicant is specifically seeking an extension of time to update and broaden its application, that's something the commission can certainly take into consideration. Since it's the applicant, the one bringing it up, that could get more information in front of the commission as well.
So what I would recommend then is that we go ahead and I'll make a motion that we continue this hearing to a future date with a recommendation that staff develop conditions for denial. But as part of bringing it back, that you provide staff, the commission, with staff reports and minutes from the 2014 meeting, I guess it was. I can't remember exactly the date. The date when the 70-foot cell tower was approved, so that Commissioner Paulin and myself can at least reacquaint ourselves or understand what occurred at that meeting. And then also if you could include in that any letters that were submitted or comments that were submitted as part of the hearing process in 2014, I think it was. Does that, sorry, it's a really long request, but I think it's clear.
Yes, I understand the motion. The one question that I have is whether or not the commission would be willing to entertain continuance of this item to a date certain. That way the public that's available on the line knows when this will be coming back. And my recommendation would be that we continue this to the March 18th agenda to allow staff time to be able to pull the information together. And then the secondary component that I actually feel that we need to hear from the applicant on this is we have a tolling agreement with the applicant on this project. So if the applicant, I would like to hear if the applicant is amenable to a revised tolling agreement to accompany this request for continuation. And Mr. Osborne has his hand raised. So if I may, Vice Chair Wiedemann.
Julia, let me get a second first.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Is there a second?
I would second that motion.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. And now we have Mr. Osborne here available. So Mr. Osborne, would you be amenable to a revised tolling agreement?
Yes, Julia. Yes, no problem at all.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Just making sure. So then we have a motion by Commissioner Jones to continue this matter to the March 18th Planning Commission meeting with direction to staff to provide documentation regarding the past action in 2014, including staff reports, minutes, and the associated public comments, as well as direction to staff to prepare an alternate resolution for denial. And I will have a couple questions after we hear a roll call vote on this, but let's go ahead and we can turn it over to Jim.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Don't forget to unmute your phone, Randall.
And remember, it's star six. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yes, I would say no.
and Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes. We don't have a quorum.
Yeah, so with that, and I will, good, I see Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski's unmuted himself.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, if this was a motion for approval or denial, I think it would have failed. Let me check the bylaws, and if it gets, give us a break to see if this would qualify as a non-substantive motion on that.
Right. Randy, are you wanting to say something?
Well, I just think we're just kicking the can down the road at this point. There's enough information here that I feel like the project. I know where I want to be on this project, and I don't really think there's a whole lot more that we don't know. I feel like I'm wasting my time if we continue to look for more information. I think they've presented everything that they can. It was, like I say, it was approved in 2014. I would approve the project with the idea that they would not be able to extend it above the 70 feet. But beyond that, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be approved.
Well, we have Commissioner Jacobson. We have we have a different motion, and I got your thoughts on that. So now we go back to Matt, County Counsel, to tell us how we go, because we're just extending it.
Yeah, so we'll give Mr. Kudrowski here just a moment or two to be looking at the bylaws, because it may be different in terms of the voting requirements for continuance versus approval or denial.
Could we take 5 minutes? Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. So the rule in the bylaws in section 6 regarding quorums is that an affirmative vote of 4 members is required for recommendation of approval of anything before that's going to the board, and for approval of any other application. At all times, a majority of a quorum shall be sufficient for approval of any procedural motion. So with that language, we're considering this a procedural motion as a continuance, and that 3-1 vote would approve the continuance.
Good.
Thank you. So with that, the item is continued to the March 18th agenda, but staff would like to ask a few clarifying questions regarding the alternate resolution for denial. Staff would just need some information from the commissioners as to what findings this denial would be based upon, and that way we can craft our resolution appropriately.
So I'd like to give you some ideas for some findings. So one will be visual impact. It's a much larger tower, so it will be more visible. The other finding is compatibility with neighboring uses, residential and school use. I don't know if other commissioners want to add anything to that. I'm not sure the coverage thing would qualify as a land use finding, but maybe.
Right. That would be what I would look at. The capacity, for the amount of impact, the capacity does not make, to me, economic sense even. Randy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops, you just muted yourself, Randy.
Okay, there I am. Am I unmuted now? Okay.
Yes, you are.
I'm not sure procedurally how we approach this, but I would like to hear from the applicant as far as the cost benefit of raising this tower 20 feet. I can't imagine that they would be proposing to do something like this if there wasn't a cost benefit. And I'm not talking about just monetary, but actually the improvement for their subscribers in the service that they'd be providing. And there must, like I say, there must be a reason for it. And I'd just like to hear from the applicant.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Godrowski, I think at this point, the public comment period's been closed. We've taken a motion on continuance, and staff is asking for the commission's, direction or comments as to this, what would support the findings for denial. I think we're coming back to this meeting in March, and certainly the applicant, to the extent they desire to speak to that issue, can do so at that time.
And I had
okay.
Can I ask a
Yes, Marie.
I'd like to ask a clarifying question of our attorney, Matthew Kodrowski. I think that's your last name. Sorry, your name isn't fully spelled out. So if it takes a majority to approve a project and we have 7 commissioners and 1 is absent, 2 are conflicted out, that leaves us with 4. It doesn't seem like even if we brought it back that we'd have a majority to approve or deny the project based on current commissioner input. And I just see this as a potential problem, and I was wondering if you could comment on it.
There's 1 more commissioner.
That person just couldn't make it today? Got it. Okay, sorry.
It's a vacant seat, actually, to be correct. It's a vacancy right now for the 2nd district seat.
Got it.
Okay.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kodrowski, this happened at a previous meeting last year, and the issue with the bylaws is, yes, as written, they require that vote of all 4 of the 7 to approve something. And our concern that we discussed in front of the commission last year was, in that event, if there is no motion to approve, and at that point there was not enough to deny on that matter, there was no action taken by the commission, with the potential being a deemed approved application. And so our recommendation at that point was to get to a unanimous vote on something in order to allow for some level of appeal to the Board of Supervisors that could be done. And so in that case, it became a 4-0 vote to preserve some conditions, and that was appealed to the board.
So can I ask a follow-up question? With the revision to the Planning Commission, has this issue been resolved, or do our bylaws need to be looked at so that we can have just a majority of commissioners who are present either approve or deny a project?
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Godrowski, I think revisions to the bylaws will probably come forward if and once the ordinance becomes effective. When the ordinance had first reading, that's obviously a very key meeting of it. Second reading is next week. It hasn't fully been adopted yet, and then it wouldn't be effective for that 30-day period beyond that. So looking in, for the future, I think we'd be thinking about that, the first meeting after it's taken effect, to present bylaws that would have revisions to there are more than one place in those bylaws that refer to either 4 members or majority of 7.
Great. Thank you.
With that, Commissioner Pollan.
Just to backtrack a little bit to staff's question about conditions for denial. I guess for me, it would feel like if there was something that was reflected in the record, and I don't know if this was in 2014 or at some point even previous to that, that the commission had stated that no height allowances beyond the 50 feet would be allowed, that would be a fairly clear condition for denial of this project, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. With that, let's, so with that, we are going back to staff. And Julia, you have what you need for writing to postpone this and coming back with, basically you're coming back with an approval and a denial. And
Yes.
more.
We'll be coming back with 2 different resolutions for consideration at the Planning Commission. And additionally, I'm going to take some of the comments that we received during the initial discussion from the commissioners about tentative additional conditions to be added to the tentative resolution for approval as well. So that way it fully reflects the conversation that was heard here today.
All right.
And with that, I think this item is then concluded.
I had an additional question. Am I still muted?
Nope, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm a little confused as to in 2014 when there was a condition that the tower would not be raised again. Was that to 70 feet, or was that actually to 50 feet? Because the way I'm interpreting this, they'd stated in the proposal that they would not apply to raise it above 70 feet. But is that wrong?
It got denied.
Sure. In my review, it looks like that 2014 permit that it increased the tower height from 50 feet to 70 feet, and that had been approved on December 18th, 2014.
Was it approved with the condition that they would not ask for to be raised again?
Not that I can see within the minutes that were adopted.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Jacobson, that's it. So now let's go on. Let's go on to the next agenda item. And with that, Commissioner Parnell, is she available to chair the meeting?
Yes, I will be bringing Commissioner Purnell back into the meeting now. So I am taking her off hold at the moment here and see if she's able to join back in. And there we go. It does appear, yay, we have Commissioner Purnell back in the meeting now, so.
We're on number 7. You're muted.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Item number 7, matters from staff.
Thank you. We have no matters from staff today, but we will be reaching out to commissioners in the future here to talk about some training items that you may seek to have at upcoming Planning Commission meetings. And I already have the list from the previous makeup of the Planning Commission, but just putting that plug out there that we will be reaching out to you in the near future to get some topics for training items.
Great, thank you, Julia. Item number 8, matters from the commission. Are there any commissioners with items? Commissioner Wiedemann, Vice Chair?
Yes, thank you. I would like to remind staff that I still am requesting the groundwater study update documents that the commissioners have. And also at the next meeting, since we have some new commissioners on, we as a commission made a list of items that we wanted to make sure we get reports on and updates on. And I would like that to be in our package. And Julia, I think you have it. If not, I can email that again to you. But with that, I would also like to have a map of the existing cell towers of the county and have that in our maps too. Russell did that. It's somewhat helpful. It's somewhat, I know there's something about maybe we can't show it publicly. I'm not sure on that.
But no, we have a public available document and that's no problem. We can produce that.
Commissioners, thank you.
Any other items from the commission?
Do we know when? It was a real pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to working with you. And Cliff and I will be the newbies and learning together, so that'll be fun. And it's fun. So thanks.
Do we have any idea on when the special meeting regarding phase 3 of the cannabis ordinance might be scheduled yet?
I can tell you I'm looking in probably the 2nd or 3rd week of March at the moment. But we will be in touch with you after we have a chance to sort out what dates are available internally and then find out which dates we would have quorum with the commissioners. So you should expect an email from me possibly even later today.
Yeah, that would be great. Getting it on the calendar sooner rather than later would be helpful. Would it likely be on a Thursday when our normal meetings are? Should I?
Actually, likely not, because most of our Thursdays are actually already scheduled for commission meetings, not just planning commission, but coastal permit administrator, zoning administrator, and our various other hearing bodies. So it might potentially be like a Wednesday or even potentially a Friday, but we will be reaching out and seeing what is available to everybody.
Great, thank you.
Anything else from commissioners? Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes. We have 2 minutes to approve today, the first of which is November 21st, 2019. And our commission services director did tell me, yes, it is actually 2019. So, and for the new commissioners and Deputy County Counsel Kudrowski, correct me if needed here. For the new commissioners, you can vote on these minutes even though you weren't there. And we may need your vote in order to get these through today.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, to confirm, I mean, the minutes, the approval of those is to approve the fact that they were correctly taken. The attendance of those meetings is not required. And this goes back to how many different bodies change their memberships over time. And if there's a change, this is obviously back more than a year, but even over a month or two, membership can change, and it shouldn't be the automatic cutoff of when the minutes could be approved by, because then the minutes are never approved.
Just
All right.
a question on that. I didn't get a copy of either of those minutes in my packet, and I guess I assumed that was because I would be abstaining from voting on them. Yeah, I guess I understand that procedural need to be able to approve things that people weren't there for, but it also I feel a little bit hesitant to approve something that I haven't even looked at.
Okay.
So our apologies.
What?
I'm happy to approve it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, if I may, to approve the minutes of November 21st, 2019 and December 3rd, 2020.
I'll second it.
We will need separate motions for each set of minutes, please.
Okay. I'll do the first one, November 21st, 2019.
Second.
Great, we have a first and a second. And is this a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Chair Purnell.
Yes.
Thank you.
I make a motion for December 3rd, 2020. Approve the minute.
I'll
You're
second.
the December 3rd, Vice Chair.
Yes.
We have a motion to approve the December 3rd, 2020 minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Just a second by Jones.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
and Chair Purnell.
Yes. Okay, both of those approved. Thank you very much. And then item 10, adjournment. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right. Bye.